Okay, so this is the second lesson in our sequences, like mini unit that we're doing. Just a reminder, we will not have a final, we will just have the quiz at the end of this unit. So that will be on the day that your final would have been. Okay, so geometric sequences. It's still looking at a pattern, okay? So we have an ordered list of numbers in which the same number is, the difference here is the number is being multiplied between each term, okay? So instead of, for arithmetic sequences, it was called a common difference. Now it's called a common ratio. So the common ratio is the number being multiplied between terms. So finding the next terms in a sequence. Write the next three terms of the arithmetic sequence below. So first thing you want to do is find out, okay, what was that number that they multiplied by? So you want to think like 3 times what would give you 12, okay? If you ever don't know it, you can divide by that number to see what it would be, and that gives you 4. So it's times 4. So the common ratio, or R, equals 4. Okay, and now if we're wanting to continue the pattern, so the last number they ended with was 192. So now I'm just going to take 192 times 4, and that gives me 768. And then I do that twice more there. And then these dots at the end there just show that the pattern continues on, okay? All right, so number 1, definitely a little tricky with all these decimals here. So remember, like I said, if you don't know this number times what would equal that, then you can work backwards and divide. So if you do that, you want to divide like 0.04 by 0.008, which will give you 5. So that tells you your common ratio, and then always check and make sure that works to get this. So 0.04 times 5 is 0.2, and then times 5 again is 1. So that means our common ratio is 5. That was correct. And then if we want to continue the pattern, our next one, we would do 1 times 5, which is 5. 5 times 5, which is 25. Times 5 is 125. Okay, go ahead and try number 2 on your own. So take a pause, and when you click play, the answers should be here short for you in just a couple seconds or so. Okay, so hopefully you're checking your answer, and you should have gotten a common ratio of 3, which would make the next three terms 16.2, 48.6, and 145.8. Okay, now we're going to look at those formulas again like we did last time. So we still have recursive and explicit just like last time. The main difference really is, I like to tell these apart because I know a geometric sequence formula has a G in it, okay? You can still follow and like I said, the longer name, recursive, is the longer formula here. So it has those 2 lines. All right, so write the recursive formula. It may be called a recursive function, but not very often, for each sequence. So on the first one, we have 5 to -10 to 20 to -40. Anytime your line is like switching like that, like positive, negative, you're most likely multiplying by a negative number. And then 5 times, you would think times blank would equal -10, and that's -2. So our common ratio, or R, is -2. All right, and I'm just going to look exactly from this formula here and know what to put down on this formula for 3. So G1 is the first term of the sequence. Well, the first term is 5. And now I want to plug in here. All I'm really plugging in, though, is the -2. And I will say, remember, these are stuck together. So if it helps you to either put parentheses or put the little dot, either one will be fine. So R is -2, so I'm replacing that with -2. And then doing times G and -1. Okay, we're not plugging in for n yet because they didn't tell us like to find a certain number, but if we were, we would. Okay, and so for a recursive, remember it's the longer formula, so it is both of these lines here. Okay, number 4. So if you look at the pattern, we're going 12 to 6 to 3 to 1.5. Okay, I'll hear a lot of people say, oh, it's dividing by 2. Yes, but you have to do this as multiplication. So you want to think 12 times what would give you 6? And that would be either 0.5, or you could also write 1/2. Okay, so our common ratio is 0.5, or as a fraction, 1/2, 1/2. So if you multiply by half, it's basically like dividing by 2. Okay, so I'm just looking off of this formula now. I didn't give you the left side here on this one. So G1, that is the first term. Well, the first term is 12. Okay, and then my next one, I would say Gn equals R, well, the common ratio, or R, was 0.5 times Gn minus 1. You are given the formulas on the quiz that we'll have. You will have to remember like kind of what goes where, but you do have those. All right, now the explicit formula. Remember, explicit is the shorter word and the shorter formula. And this is typically the one that we use to actually solve for a number, okay? So write an explicit equation right here. For the nth term of the geometric sequence, 8, negative 24, 72, negative 216. So first I'm just going to copy down that formula. So the explicit formula is Gn equals G1 R n minus 1 as an exponent, okay? And hopefully remember, so geometric sequences are exponential functions, which was where we had that exponent from our last unit, and arithmetic sequences are linear functions. So we have already kind of looked at similar formulas, but now they're set up a little bit different. Okay, so that is the base formula here, and then I plug in from there. So it says plug in G1 and R. Well, Gn I leave the same. Okay, G1 was 8, that's the first one. And then you do not want to do where I just attach the ratio. So let's look back at that real quick. In this case, 8, you want to think 8 times what is negative 24, and that is negative 3. I don't want to do this on my formula right there. That means 8 minus 3. I am trying to multiply by negative 3, so I could do it like this with parentheses. Okay, so that gets me to here. And now I do n minus 1 as the exponent. Okay, simplify the equation. So since we do not have a number yet for n, we're actually not going to do that part. We're not ready for that. So that is in simplest form. You do have one on your quiz where like they say simplify if you can, but you can't do that one. Okay, lastly, step 4, plug in n to find G10. That means the n is 10. That's whatever number we're trying to find. So I'm going to say G10, or the 10th term, equals 8 times negative 3, and then as an exponent, 10 minus 1. All right, I'm going to go ahead and simplify that. So what I would actually plug into my calculator would be 8, parentheses, negative 3, and then an exponent of 9, because 10 minus 1 was 9. So go ahead and take a second and figure that. I will do the same. Okay, and that gave me, switch back here, the 10th term to equal negative 157,464. So very big / small negative number. And that does make sense because since we're multiplying each time, these geometric or exponential functions go up really quickly because you're multiplying instead of adding. So once those numbers start getting bigger, they increase really rapidly. All right, so last set here, write an explicit equation for each geometric sequence, then find the 8th term. So again, you're given the formulas on the test, you just have to make sure you know like which ones go with which. And the G and A are helpful to remind you like, oh, this one's for arithmetic, that one's for geometric. Okay, so number 1, 3 to 15 to 75 to 375. Well, it looks like the common ratio is 5. They are multiplying by 5. So if I plug into my equation, they already wrote the GN for us. I'm going to say G1 is 3. And then what I don't want to do is just write a 5 next to it. I can do the dot and 5 or parentheses 5. And then in the exponent, n minus 1. All right, and if I wanted the 8th term, I would now say G8 equals 3 times 5, and then 8 minus 1. That would simplify to 3 times 5. 8 minus 1 is 7. Okay, and if you work that out, you should get the 8th term is 234,375. So as you're probably realizing, these numbers are going to be very large. All right, go ahead and take a pause and try number 2. And as usual, when you click play, the answers will be here for you shortly after. Okay, so this is the answer you should have gotten. Hopefully that all worked out for you. Remember to simplify that 8 minus 1 before plugging into your calculator. All right, I hope you have a good day. Just a reminder, next class period, we will have a review and a quiz, and that will be the end of the semester. So I hope you're getting caught up. Please feel free to message me any questions and that in the meantime. And have a good day. Bye.